Imagine a courtroom, not the high drama-filled chamber of a primetime legal show, but the mundane, workaday reality of municipal traffic court. The air is thick with the scent of old paper files and stale coffee, the benches worn smooth by thousands of people just trying to get through their day. It's into this unremarkable setting that a case is called, and a story begins to unfold that is anything but ordinary. A black woman, projecting an aura of composed professionalism in her mid-30s, stands before the renowned Judge Caprio. Her name is Vanessa Richardson, and the file in the judge's hand is alarmingly thick. It contains 11 separate traffic citations, all accrued in the last 6 months. 11. Not for speeding, not for DUIs, but for a flurry of minor, almost discretionary infractions. And as Judge Caprio's eyes scan the printouts, he sees the same car, the same neighborhood, and chillingly, the name of the same arresting officer on every single report. His expression, usually one of routine patience, shifts, tightening into something far more concerned. He looks over his glasses at the woman standing before him, her posture perfect, her face betraying nothing but a profound, bone-deep weariness. "Miss Richardson," Judge Caprio begins, his voice echoing slightly in the quiet room. This is excessive. I see 11 stops in 6 months by Sergeant Donovan. I'm struggling to understand what's happening here. Can you explain this?" The courtroom holds its collective breath. The prosecutor, who had been idly reviewing his next file, looks up. The bailiff pauses his quiet pacing. Vanessa Richardson takes a measured breath, her eyes meeting the judge's, and her answer is just 3 words, delivered with the weight of 1,000 identical encounters. "I drive while black." A silence descends, heavier and more profound than the usual quiet of the court. This isn't just about traffic stops anymore. This is about a pattern, a relentless, documented, and undeniable pattern of behavior that even the city's prosecutor will soon find impossible to defend. Judge Caprio's response, built not on snap judgment but on the methodical destruction of a false narrative, would become one of the most powerful and defining moments his courtroom, famous for its compassion, has ever witnessed. This story is a stark reminder of why meticulous documentation is the ultimate shield against discrimination, a tool that can defeat a broken system when wielded with courage. It's a story that should matter to everyone, everywhere. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 3:20 p.m., the docket dragging on. The bailiff in a monotone voice called out, "Case 10,483, Vanessa Richardson, multiple traffic violations." Vanessa moved from the bench and approached the defendant's table. She was the picture of success, a crisp business blazer, tailored slacks, carrying a well-used leather briefcase that spoke of late nights and early mornings. She was, as the court would soon learn, a real estate attorney working downtown. She drove a late-model Honda Accord, a responsible, reliable car. Nothing flashy, nothing to draw attention, or so one would think. Judge Caprio, known for his ability to read a file and a person in seconds, reviewed the printouts and then stopped cold. He physically flipped through the pages one by one. He wasn't just reading, he was counting, his eyebrows raised higher with each page turn. "Miss Richardson," he said, his voice now laced with genuine bewilderment, "I am looking at 11 separate traffic stops. All within a 6-month period. All I see from Sergeant Michael Donovan." He listed the alleged infractions, his incredulity growing. Broken taillight, failure to signal a turn, window tint allegedly too dark, an expired registration, a suspended license check, and 3 more for what are listed as minor infractions. This is... He looked up from the file, his gaze locking with hers, searching for an answer. "This is highly unusual, ma'am." Very unusual. Vanessa's voice was calm, but it was the calmness of a placid ocean over a raging current. It was the sound of exhaustion given voice. "Your Honor, I understand exactly what this looks like, but I must promise you, I am not a reckless driver. In fact, because of this, I am probably the most meticulous driver in the state. I follow every single traffic law. I signal 100 feet before a turn. I make 3-second stops at every sign, and yet I keep getting pulled over." She paused, letting the numbers sink in. 11 times in 6 months. That's almost twice a month, Your Honor. Just trying to get to and from my office. Judge Caprio was already absorbing the new data points. "And Miss Richardson, I'm noticing another pattern here. All 11 stops were conducted by this same officer, Sergeant Michael Donovan. Is that accurate?" "Yes, Your Honor. Every single one. And," the judge continued, tracing a line on a map integrated into the file, "all 11 stops occurred in the same general area. The East Side Corridor, the stretch between downtown and the residential neighborhoods." He looked up. "Is that your commute route?" "Yes, Your Honor. I live on the east side. I work downtown. That is my daily route, twice a day. Judge Caprio's expression darkened perceptibly. The pieces were no longer just scattered. They were forming a picture he found deeply disturbing. Ms. Richardson, walk me through what happens during these stops. Let's not talk about all 11. Just take the most recent one. What happened? Vanessa took a small, steadying breath, accessing the memory that was never far from her mind. I was driving home from work. It was about 5:30 p.m. Traffic was moderate. As I said, I was being meticulous. I signaled every turn, stayed exactly at the speed limit, made complete stops. Suddenly, I see the lights in my rear-view mirror. It was Sergeant Donovan. He pulled me over, and when he approached my window, he claimed my brake light was out. And was it? Judge Caprio asked. No, Your Honor. It was not. I got out of my car, right there on the side of the road, and I asked him to watch as I pressed the brake. Both lights were working perfectly. I even took a video of them working, right there on my phone, while he was watching. You recorded it? This caught Judge Caprio's full attention. The tenor of the hearing shifted instantly. Your Honor, Vanessa said, her voice gaining a new strength. After the 7th stop, I started recording everything. I bought a dashcam, and I kept my phone ready. I did it because nobody was believing me. My partners at the firm, my husband, they thought I must be doing something wrong. I started to believe it myself. The recordings were to prove I wasn't crazy. The prosecutor was now paying very close attention, a flicker of unease on his face. You have video evidence? Here? Now? Judge Caprio asked. Yes, Your Honor, from the last 4 stops. May I show you? The bailiff, sensing the gravity, moved quickly to set up the courtroom's monitor. Vanessa, all business, pulled out her phone and a small connector from her briefcase. The screen flickered to life. The first video began to play. It was clear, high-definition dashcam footage from inside her car. The timestamp showed 5:32 p.m. The video showed her driving carefully, signaling, following every rule of the road. Then, the distinct, flashing red and blue lights filled her rear window. She pulled over calmly. The audio was crystal clear. An officer, Sergeant Donovan, a white male in his late 40s, approached her window. His voice was bored, authoritative. License and registration. You know why I stopped you? Vanessa's voice, equally clear, responded. No, officer, I don't. Your brake light's out. That's a safety hazard. Officer, I personally checked my lights this morning before I left for work. May I please get out and verify that? Stay in the vehicle, ma'am, he ordered. He walked to the back of her Honda. On the video, you could clearly see both red brake lights illuminating perfectly as she pressed the pedal. Sergeant Donovan saw this too. You could see his shoulders tense on the video. He then returned to her window. His demeanor changed. He was no longer bored. He was annoyed. Registration expired, he stated flatly. Officer, Vanessa's voice replied. My registration is valid through December of this year. She pointed to the current sticker, clearly visible on the plate and through the windshield. The camera zoomed in. It was valid. A long, tense pause filled the audio track. Sergeant Donovan stared at her, his expression unreadable but hostile. Sit tight, he said, then walked back to his patrol car. The courtroom watched in silence as the video's timestamp ticked forward. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes passed. Vanessa just sat calmly, the camera recording the passage of time, the sound of cars rushing past. Finally, Sergeant Donovan returned. I'm issuing a warning this time. Drive carefully. No explanation for the broken light. No apology for the expired registration. Just a warning, and he was gone. Judge Caprio's face was a mask, but his hands were clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. The courtroom was completely still. Vanessa, without a word, cued the second video. Different date, same officer, same pattern. This time it was raining. The claimed violation was failure to signal for a lane change. The dashcam footage, which captured her hand on the signal stalk and the click, click, click on the audio, clearly showed her signaling. Another 15-minute delay. Another warning ultimately issued after he could find nothing else wrong. The third video, Sergeant Donovan claimed her window tint was too dark. Officer, her voice on the video explained, this is factory glass. This car has no aftermarket tint. He pulled out a tint meter, held it to the glass, and looked at the reading, visibly frustrated. Another warning, the fourth video, suspicious driving pattern. Your Honor, Vanessa explained, I was driving 25 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone. He said I was pacing his patrol car, which had been parked in a side street. Judge Caprio held up a hand. Stop the videos. He turned, his face showing a rare, cold anger mixed with a deep, profound sadness. Miss Richardson, how long do these stops typically last? Between 10 and 25 minutes, Your Honor. On average, about 15. I've been late to work. I've been late picking up my daughter from her daycare. I've had to call clients from the side of the road to tell them I was being detained. And in these 11 stops, the judge pressed, how many actual physical citations were issued? 3, Your Honor, Vanessa replied. 8 were warnings, given only after he couldn't find anything actually wrong. And the 3 citations that were issued, what were they for? Vanessa checked her notes, a small, professional notepad. 1 was for the registration he claimed was expired, even after I showed him it was valid. 1 was for the broken tail light, which the video showed was working, and 1 was for the failure to signal, which the video showed I did. I am here today, Your Honor, contesting all 3 of those because they are factually false. Judge Caprio turned his steely gaze to the prosecutor. Counselor, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. Are you seeing what I am seeing? Are you processing this evidence? The prosecutor, to his credit, looked deeply uncomfortable. He was no longer the bored functionary. He stood, shuffling his papers. Your Honor, I'm going to need to review these videos and the officers' reports more carefully. The people. You do that, Counselor. Judge Caprio cut him off. You do that, because from where I'm sitting, this looks like a textbook case of targeted harassment. This doesn't look like traffic enforcement. This looks like a vendetta. He turned back to Vanessa, but he wasn't finished. Miss Richardson, let me ask you something directly, in your professional opinion. And you are an attorney, so you understand the legal standards of evidence. Do you believe these stops are racially motivated? The courtroom tensed. This was the question. The one everyone was thinking, but that rarely gets asked so directly in open court. This was the third rail. Vanessa's answer was a masterclass in legal precision. Your Honor, I cannot prove what is in Sergeant Donovan's mind or his heart. I cannot speak to his motivations, but I can tell you the facts. I am a black woman driving a modest, reliable car through a predominantly white neighborhood on my way home from my job as an attorney. I have been stopped 11 times in 6 months by the exact same white police officer. Each stop begins with a false or grossly exaggerated claim. Each stop involves a detention of 15 to 25 minutes while he runs my plates, my license, my insurance, searching for something to cite. Each stop happens during my normal commute, at a time when I am demonstrably following every traffic law to the letter. She paused, then delivered the final piece of evidence. Meanwhile, Your Honor, my white colleagues who live in the same neighborhood, who drive the same route, and who work in my building, they have never been stopped. Not once. I asked them. Judge Caprio nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on her. You documented this? Yes, Your Honor. She reached into her briefcase again and pulled out a binder. I surveyed 15 colleagues in my building who drive that same corridor. 9 are white. 6 are people of color. The 9 white colleagues, 0 stops in the past year. The 6 colleagues of color, a combined 23 stops in that same period. She placed the binder on the table, and the bailiff passed it to the judge. It wasn't just notes. It was a spreadsheet. Organized, professional, color-coded, undeniable. Miss Richardson, Judge Caprio said, his voice low with astonishment. This is extraordinary documentation. Your Honor, I'm an attorney, she said simply. I know that without evidence, it's just my word against a police officer's. So I gathered evidence. I documented everything. The videos, the dates, the times, the GPS data from my phone showing my exact speed and route. I gathered witness statements from my colleagues. I compiled the comparative data. I did it because I knew deep down that nobody would believe me otherwise. A quiet commotion came from the gallery. An older black man had his hand raised. Judge Caprio, breaking protocol slightly, nodded to him. The man stood, his voice shaking with a lifetime of emotion. Your Honor, my name is Marcus Webb. I've lived on the East Side for 45 years. What this young lady is describing, I've experienced it my entire life. My father experienced it. We've always called it driving while black. It isn't new. It's just rarely documented this well. God bless her for doing it. Before he could even sit, a white woman in her 50s stood up from the same bench. Your Honor, I'm Patricia Chen. I'm Miss Richardson's colleague. I'm one of the 9 white colleagues on that spreadsheet. She looked at Vanessa. I drive the same route she does, same time of day. I drive a Lexus, and I admit, I sometimes speed. I've never been stopped, not once in 5 years. When Vanessa told me about her 11 stops, I hate to admit this, but I didn't fully believe it. It just sounded impossible. Then she showed me the videos. She showed me the spreadsheet. It's real. and it is deeply, deeply wrong." Judge Caprio had heard enough. He turned back to the prosecutor, who looked like he wished he were anywhere else. "Counselor, I am dismissing all 3 citations against Ms. Richardson with prejudice. There is not a shred of credible evidence to support any of them, but I am not stopping there. I want Sergeant Donovan's complete traffic stop records for the past 2 years. I want every stop, every warning, every citation. I want the demographic data, the race and gender of every driver he has pulled over, and I want the Providence Police Department's Internal Affairs Division to review this case, starting this afternoon." The prosecutor, pale, nodded. "Yes, Your Honor, I will make that request immediately." Judge Caprio then turned to Vanessa and delivered his ruling with a force that resonated through the room. "Miss Richardson, all citations are dismissed. You owe this court nothing, but more importantly, I am issuing a court order effective immediately." He began typing as he spoke. "First, Sergeant Michael Donovan is hereby barred, enjoined, and restrained from conducting any traffic stops, pedestrian checks, or any other official interaction with you, Miss Richardson. If you are pulled over by him again for any reason, you are to call my chambers immediately, and I will hold him in direct contempt of this court. Second, I am ordering the Providence Police Department to provide this court with the full traffic stop data for Sergeant Donovan for the past 2 years. I want to see precisely how deep this pattern extends. Third, I am forwarding your complete documentation package, the videos, the spreadsheet, the comparative analysis, and a transcript of today's hearing to the United States Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. What you have shown me today suggests a pattern and practice of discriminatory enforcement that violates the 4th and 14th Amendments of the Constitution." Vanessa's eyes, dry and determined this whole time, finally filled with tears. They weren't tears of sadness, but of a dam of frustration and fear finally breaking. "Your Honor, thank you. I just wanted someone to listen." "Miss Richardson," Judge Caprio said, his voice softening but losing none of its power, "you did more than ask someone to listen. You made the system listen. You documented everything. You built an airtight case. You proved, with facts and data, what many people experience but can never prove in a court of law. That takes a unique combination of courage and intelligence." His voice then strengthened, addressing the entire courtroom. "Let me be clear to everyone in this room. Racial profiling in traffic stops is real. It is a documented fact. It is illegal, and it is a cancer on our justice system. It destroys the trust between communities and the police who are sworn to protect them. Ms. Richardson should not have to be her own private investigator. She should not have to record every drive to work. She should not have to compile comparative data on her colleagues. She should not have to spend her time and energy proving that she has the right to drive to and from her job without harassment. But she did, and because she did, we cannot and we will not ignore it." A young black woman in the back row stood up. "Your Honor? I'm a college student. I get pulled over constantly. They always ask if they can search my car. But I don't have all this documentation. I don't have a spreadsheet. Does that mean nothing happens for people like me?" Judge Caprio's answer was direct and practical. "It means you start documenting. Start today. Get a notebook. Every single stop. Write down the date, the time, the location. Write down the officer's name and badge number. Ask for it politely. They are required to give it to you. Write down the stated reason for the stop and write down the outcome. Record it with your phone if it is safe to do so." Ms. Richardson just showed us the blueprint. Documentation defeats denial. Evidence is your shield. Or, as if to complete the picture, a white police officer in plain clothes, who had been sitting in the back, stood. "Your Honor, may I speak? Are you here in an official capacity, officer?" "No, Your Honor. I'm off duty, but I'm a Providence police officer, and I feel I need to say something. What Sergeant Donovan did, if this is all proven true, it's wrong. It's disgusting. It violates our training. It violates our policies, and it violates our oath. Most officers, we don't do this. We just want to do our job and go home, but the ones who do, they make all of us look bad. They ruin the trust we try to build, and I just want to apologize to Miss Richardson." Judge Caprio nodded respectfully. "Officer, thank you for that. This court recognizes that the majority of police officers do their work with honor, but when one officer abuses their authority, the system must respond. And that is what is happening here." As court concluded, a small crowd approached Vanessa. Marcus Webb, the older man, took her hand. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick. "Thank you for fighting back, for documenting, for not giving up." Patricia Chen, her colleague, gave her a fierce hug. I am so sorry I didn't believe you at first, Vanessa. I should have. Before Vanessa could leave, Judge Caprio called her back to the bench. Ms. Richardson, one more thing. Your documentation, that spreadsheet, the videos, your methodology. Can I have copies of all of it? Of course, Your Honor, she said, confused. I want to use them in judicial training. I want to show other judges what actual, documented racial profiling looks like, so they know it when they see it, so they can't ignore it either. If it helps, Your Honor, use everything. Oh, it will help, Judge Caprio said with a firm nod. It will help. You've done what the system so often fails to do. You've made the invisible visible. 3 weeks later, a thick report landed on Judge Caprio's desk. The data on Sergeant Donovan was even worse than he feared. It showed he stopped black drivers at 5 times the rate of white drivers in the same East Side corridor for the same minor infractions. The internal affairs investigation was swift. Donovan was reassigned to desk duty, his gun and badge taken, pending a review that would almost certainly lead to his termination. The Department of Justice formally announced their investigation into the department's traffic stop practices. And Vanessa Richardson? She drove to work. She drove home. She still signaled every turn and meticulously followed the speed limit. But she did so with her shoulders a little more relaxed. She hadn't been pulled over since. This entire case, from the first of the 11 stops to the final damning report, serves as a powerful testament to what happens when one person's unshakable courage, backed by cold, hard, undeniable evidence, confronts a system that would prefer to look away. Vanessa Richardson was stopped for driving while black, but she fought back with something more powerful than anger. She fought back with facts. Judge Caprio, in turn, refused to ignore what that data made so painfully clear. It's a profound reminder that documentation is, and always will be, the most powerful weapon against discrimination, and that one person's refusal to be silenced can, indeed, demand and create systemic change. Have you ever been in a situation like this, where you felt you weren't being believed? Has documentation ever been your shield? This story matters because it proves that even against overwhelming power, you are not as alone as you think.